And how are you feeling about the whole thing? I, myself, am very, very, very excited. How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling great. You're day 98, so thank you for your service to all of us. And one of the things I just wanted to thank you for, and we will continue, there's only one Rachel Maddow, it's you, but you have shined a light on all of the activism and grassroots movements and people out there who are having their voice heard. We're going to keep doing that in lots of ways. People like Governor Pritzker, people that you've never heard of, protests, all sorts of things. And you've been such an inspiration. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I mean, we've been covering it just because I'm super interested in it, but it has been one of the most interesting and sort of salient dynamics of these first 100 days is the crescendo of that movement as it started small and then grew in this steady and sustainable way, spreading all over the country, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think it's one of the most important things going on in the country. You're seeing it now reflected in so much that's happening in Washington-centric politics. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you do with 9 p.m., Jen. I am looking forward to it with bated breath.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, my friend. And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. Really happy to have you here. Today at the U.S. Capitol building, the Reverend William Barber was arrested inside the U.S. Capitol Rotunda for praying with other clergy there inside the rotunda. You can see what it says there on his vestments. It says, Jesus was a poor man. Outside the Capitol building, supporters and friends of Reverend Barber rallied in the first of what they say will be repeated Moral Mondays protests against the actions of the Trump administration. Reverend Barber leading those protests for so long in North Carolina to such great national galvanizing effect. Moral Mondays protests starting today, including with Reverend Barber himself being arrested for peacefully praying inside the rotunda. That action today follows an unusual sit-in style protest on the steps of the U.S. Capitol yesterday. This started at sunrise Sunday morning with just New Jersey U.S. Senator Cory Booker and the Democratic leader of the House, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. It started with the two of them yesterday morning at sunrise. But then all day long, they stayed, and the steps of the Capitol just kind of quietly filled up over the course of the day as more and more people came to sit with them and talk with them, including Reverend Barber at one point, including many other members of Congress over the course of the day. Senators, including Chris Coons and Raphael Warnock, Angela Alsobrooks, Amy Klobuchar, Brian Schatz, Adam Schiff, Lisa Blunt-Rochester. All those senators came by during the course of the day yesterday. Also members of Congress, members of the House, including Andre Carson and Maxwell Frost and Emmanuel Cleaver, Sarah McBride, Mark Takano, Tom Suozzi, Sidney Kamlager-Dove, Stephen Horsford, Subramaniam, Emily Randall, Sarah Elfreth, Stacey Plaskett. People came by, members of Congress and regular people came by all day long to sort of participate in this sit-in, to talk about opposition to what Trump is doing. They talked a lot about faith. There was a lot of prayer. Congressman Jeffries and Senator Booker stayed more than 12 hours doing this yesterday. More than 6 million people watched parts of the live stream while they were there yesterday. Meanwhile, Sunday, this group of elderly folks from a local senior living facility protested in Catonsville, Maryland, hands off Social Security. They told local reporters that they first started protesting 12 weeks ago, and it was just a handful of seniors from their senior living facility. Now in Catonsville, Maryland, they say it is dozens of people more joining every single week. We saw protests against Donald Trump yesterday in downtown Montclair, New Jersey. We saw protests against Trump in Waco, Texas, of all places. I see you, Waco. Also in Alton, Illinois, and in Las Vegas, Nevada. Dadeville, Alabama. Hello, Dadeville. Dallas, Texas. In Townsend, Tennessee, beautiful part of Tennessee that I have visited, people came out this weekend to defend the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and to stand up for all the national parks against Trump's decimating cuts to the National Park Service. We saw protests this weekend outside the VA to support people who work at the VA, to support veterans' health care in Atlanta. We saw protests in El Paso, Texas, Rise Up El Paso. Attendees at the Rise Up El Paso protest this weekend included Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, Democratic Congresswoman. We saw this weekend a caravan to the Canadian border in Vermont, and Vermonters lining the overpasses on I-89 and Interstate 89 near the border to show support for Canada and Canadians, to show common cause, to say that the people of this country love Canada and are not trying to make an enemy of Canada, even if our president inexplicably is. Incidentally, I should tell you, we are in the final hour of polls still being open in Canada right now as we wait to learn the results of their national election tonight. We will let you know more as we learn more. In Youngstown, Ohio, this weekend, we saw one of many protests to defend immigrants and to demand that Trump stop abusing due process protections to arrest people and imprison people and fly them out of the country without the right to defend themselves or contest the allegations against them.
The Mahoning Valley Freedom Fighters organized a rally and protest called Defend Our Neighbors. The group met outside the sheriff's office because the Mahoning County Jail has an agreement to house ICE detainees. The protesters' main concern is making sure all people have the right to due process of law.
We're not here for any specific immigrant. We're not here for any specific reason other than due process. We do not want the Trump administration to set a precedent for allowing anyone to go without due process.
It was Youngstown, Ohio this weekend. After the Trump administration had a sitting judge arrested at a courthouse in Wisconsin on Friday, there were protests right away. As soon as people heard about it, they came down to the courthouse, and then they stayed and protested all day long at Milwaukee County Courthouse to stand up for Judge Hannah Dugan, who had been arrested by the FBI. Protests on Friday then spread to other courthouses and federal buildings, including the federal courthouse in Minneapolis, people coming out to support that judge to respond to the shocking news of her arrest. By Saturday, there were a lot of people protesting at the Milwaukee FBI field office, again, protesting against the arrest of that judge. People were protesting against the arrest of that judge at federal buildings all over the country by Saturday, places as far-flung as this federal building in Phoenix, Arizona. And, you know, this is something to watch. This is something to think about maybe for your own community, no matter where you live. We are now starting to see all over the country people springing into action really quickly as essentially an emergency response when something happens on short notice. And we're seeing it specifically where people are trying to defend and advocate for people who Trump's immigration agents have arrested. Everybody's talking now about what's happened in these first 100 days of this term of the Trump administration. Well, one of the things that we are seeing happen increasingly, I mean, I review protest footage 7 days a week. I look at all of the stuff that's coming in all over the country in terms of the way people are standing up to Trump. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I am seeing myself increasingly as I'm looking at the footage from everywhere is we're seeing people all over the country, sometimes in surprising places, scrambling, making plans, recognizing that if this hasn't yet happened in your town, it's definitely going to. And then when Trump's agents inevitably take someone, they take an individual, they take a family, they take kids, people are realizing it really can make a difference to that individual, to that family, to those kids, if the community reacts instantly. If people show up bodily, if they instantly call legal help, they know who to call and they call them. They instantly call the media. They know who to call and they call them. They call their members of Congress. They call their local officials. The speed of the response can make a difference. So whether it is through, church groups or groups like Indivisible or just local one-off groups like we saw there in the Mahoning Valley at Youngstown, Ohio, or groups of friends or book clubs or whatever it is, when it inevitably happens to somebody in your town, somebody who lives near you or goes to your church or works near you or goes to school near you, what we are seeing increasingly all over the country, and I think a spontaneous, not centralized effort, it's just that people are all recognizing at the same time this needs to be done. We are seeing that people in communities everywhere have talked about it in advance. They have made a plan for what to do, for how to advocate for that person who has been taken. You got to have the plan before it happens, or the plan can't go into effect quickly. But we saw what this looks like this past week in Flathead County, Montana. A local group called Flathead Democracy had planned ahead. They had a rapid response plan in place when, sure enough, a local man was arrested by Trump immigration agents in Whitefish, Montana. And his lawyers say that he is here legally and that he has no criminal record, but Trump's immigration agents nevertheless arrested him, snatched him off the street. The day he was arrested, local residents who had prepared for something like this to happen, they rushed to the CBP facility in Whitefish where they were holding this man. Over the course of the night, 40 or 50 people showed up. People coming down there as they heard the news. Again, this is the day that he was taken, so it was an immediate response. Among other things, they used a bullhorn to shout, basically just shout legal advice to anybody inside that facility, how to request a lawyer. He has a lawyer. Supporters say they have moved him now, but the people in his town are fighting like hell to try to get him back. We saw something similar this weekend in Tampa, Florida, where a young mother was arrested by Trump's immigration agents at a routine immigration check-in. She has lived in Florida for years. Her whole family is in Florida. She's totally integrated into the community. She's not known to have any criminal record. Her friends and family in Tampa are now trying everything they can to get her back. She has a 1-year-old daughter. She's breastfeeding. Tampa Bay area residents protesting this weekend, appealing, among other things, to Florida senators, Florida U.S. senators and Florida's members of Congress to please try to help get her back. We also continue to see Tesla protests as that company announces a 71% drop in profit, and as the company's CEO, the president's top campaign donor, announces plans to leave Washington and return to his flailing company. And meanwhile, he denounces everybody protesting against him as a paid agent because he cannot conceive, in his giant brain, he cannot conceive that people might just dislike him for free. We saw protests at Tesla dealerships this weekend in Salem, Oregon, and Plano, Texas, and Seattle, Washington, and Maplewood, Montana. Honestly, there were so many Tesla protests this week, and we had to put them all in a grid like this to get in all the footage. Left to right, top to bottom, that's Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Colma, California, there with the gigantic inflatable Donald Trump chicken up on the upper right there. That's Northbrook, Illinois. Nice chicken. Below that, we've got Warminster, Pennsylvania, Miami, Florida, Loveland, Colorado. Lower left, that's Golden Valley, Minnesota. That's Tempe, Arizona. In the center on the bottom row there, and St. Louis, Missouri, lower right. We also this weekend saw a protest and sort of a community meeting in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis Community Against Pollution. This is a protest against what are reported to be unpermitted polluting gas turbines that Elon Musk's artificial intelligence company, his AI company, is using at a computing facility that they have built in Memphis. Air pollution is already a big problem in Memphis and in Shelby County, even before these gas turbines went up in what happens to be a particularly hard-hit neighborhood. Neighbors there say they are active on this matter, and they are not going to give up until Musk's company is shut down in Memphis for having done this. Today's yet another day of polling that confirms what is now validated by every major poll that has been done, heading toward the 100 days benchmark this week. New Washington Post, ABC News Ipsos poll. Do you approve or disapprove of Donald Trump? Disapprove by a 16-point margin. Do you approve or disapprove of Elon Musk? Ooh, look at that. Disapprove by a 22-point margin. Yikes. Do you approve or disapprove of Donald Trump's handling of immigration? Disapprove by a 7-point margin. Do you approve or disapprove of Trump's managing of the federal government? Disapprove by a 15-point margin. Is Donald Trump looking out for the interests of average Americans? No, by a 17-point margin. Do you approve of Trump deporting international students who have criticized U.S. policy in the Middle East? No, disapprove by a 20-point margin. Do you approve of Trump's handling of the economy? No, 22-point margin. Do you approve of Trump's handling of our relations with other countries? No, 23-point margin. Do you approve of Trump's cutting environmental regulations for oil and gas drilling? No, not at all, by a 24-point margin. Do you approve of Trump freezing foreign aid? No, by an even larger 26-point margin. Do you approve of Trump's handling of tariffs? No, 30-point margin. Do you approve of his shutting down the Department of Education? No, 33-point margin. Jeez. Do you approve of him trying to end birthright citizenship, which is the part of the Constitution that says if you're born here, you're an American? Do you approve of Trump trying to end that? No. No, Americans do not approve of him trying to end that by a huge margin, by a 36-point margin. Do you approve of Donald Trump increasing the federal government's role in how private universities operate? That's a nice way to put it, right? Even phrased that gently and euphemistically, guess what the answer is? The answer is no. Americans do not like what he is doing to universities by a 42-point margin. How about this one? Are you in favor of Donald Trump's cuts to federal funding for medical research? No, we are not. By a 56-point margin, Americans do not like that Donald Trump is cutting medical research. Remember when he ran for president saying, I'm going to cut all the medical research? No, you don't. Because he never said that, so why is he doing it? 56% is the margin, is the difference between the people who oppose that versus support it. I mean, that's insane. There's also this new CNN poll out today. Do you think Trump's actions on tariffs during his second term so far have been a good policy? No, by a 27-point margin. Do you think Trump's policies have improved or worsened economic conditions in our country? Worsened by a 32-point margin. Do you think Trump's policies on tariffs will help or hurt America's standing in the world? His policies on tariffs will hurt America's standing in the world. So say Americans by a 34-point margin. More than 2-1. There's also a new NBC News SurveyMonkey poll. Same thing you'd expect broadly, looking at all the other polling. It all says the same thing. Trump underwater on essentially everything. And on almost all issues, he is deeply underwater. That is absolutely true in the new NBC News SurveyMonkey poll as well. Top line in that poll, approval of Trump is underwater, -10. Approval of Elon Musk is underwater, -18. Yikes. But they ask some of these questions in an interesting way, and they give you ways to parse them that are interesting. Look at this. This is the depth of feeling. Just breaking out the people who are strongly approving or strongly disapproving of Trump and Musk. I mean, that's horrendous for them. Look at that. The strongly approve number. You've got the bottom left one is wrong there. See the 42, that should be strongly disapprove. Strongly approve is 26, strongly disapprove is 42. On Musk, strongly favorable 21, strongly unfavorable is 41. There are a lot more people in this country who strongly disapprove of Trump and Musk than there are people who really like them. And let me just show you just one other interesting thing from this new NBC poll. This is great. Which of the following emotions describes the, this is like a Pixar movie. Which of the following emotions best describes how you are currently feeling about the actions the Trump administration has taken so far during its term? And they give people the big list of possible answers, the big list of emotions: thrilled, happy, satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied, angry, or furious. The number one answer for how you feeling about Trump so far, number one answer is furious. More than anything, people feel furious about Trump's actions thus far, 100 days into his presidency. So you know what? It's not going great for the guy. It's really not. I think Trump has started to realize that this public opinion stuff is going to be the story of how his first 100 days have gone. I mean, heading into his first 100 days, today's like day 98, the headlines are like this: Trump's approval at 100 days lower than any president in at least 7 decades. Yeah, how's it going, big guy? You can tell it's bugging him. Because he posted this online today. He posted that the press, quote, cheats big on polls. Really? All of them? He's ranting now. He's calling the polls fake. He says they're fake polls. And he says he wants pollsters investigated for election fraud. What election? He says pollsters are, quote, sick. He calls pollsters, quote, negative criminals. What's a negative criminal? What does that even mean? Is being a negative criminal better or worse than being a positive criminal? What's a negative criminal? And what crime are pollsters committing with their negative criminal, fake election fraud, poll fake stuff? The president is very upset that the polls show that the country does not like him. The country really, really does not like him and sees his first 100 days as a disaster. He has had, in public opinion terms, he has had the most disastrous first 100 days of any president since the dawn of modern polling. No president has ever botched the first 100 days more badly than Donald Trump has botched it. And that's true not just for his approval rating generally and how people feel about him. It's for every single thing you ask the American public about in terms of what he has done. Do you like any of it? No. Today, Donald Trump started threatening Republican U.S. senators that they better not vote against him this week on this tariffs bill. This is a bill that's going to come up in the Senate that has precisely zero chance of becoming law because they're never even going to vote on it in the Republican-controlled House. Even if it passed the Senate, it would go nowhere. There's no chance it can actually become law. Still, though, Trump appears to be freaking out that Republican senators are going to vote against him on it, because his tariff adventures are rating somewhere between lice and bedbugs in terms of their popularity with the American people. And what Republican senator wouldn't want to distance him or herself from that? He's threatening Republican senators that they better not vote against him on this, not because the vote will matter, but because he's desperate to stop his own party from turning against him. Just 100 days in, as he pursues a radically unpopular agenda and, frankly, does so very poorly. He's doing things that the American people hate the idea of, and then when he executes on those things, he fails. Bad ideas done badly. So listen, here's where I think we are right now. I think that Trump and the Trump administration are going to throw some increasingly wild pitches to try to change the political trajectory of how things are going. I mean, they're now deporting U.S. citizens. You can't deport a U.S. citizen. U.S. citizens are from here. There's nowhere to deport them to. They're now arresting judges, right? It's insane. I think that we should expect some wild pitches, some truly reckless actions to try to change the trajectory of how things are going, to try to make it seem like this is a new game. I think because of that instinct in Trump, we should expect that there are going to be some things ahead that are markedly more horrible than even what they have done already. I think they're going to try to put some proverbial heads on pikes, and I think that's going to be terrible. I also think, though, that the more important truth here is that the country is against them, and the country is against him, and he knows it. And the country is not only willing to get out and protest against him, they are willing to do it over and over and over and over and over and over again in every state in the country and just about every town. Culturally, it is now firmly established that capitulation and sucking up to Trump is shameful and weak and marks you as a loser. Conversely, I think it is culturally ingrained now that saying no to Trump and fighting him and standing up to him shows that you are strong and a winner and somebody who other people might be interested in. The superabundance of court rulings against Trump will continue. I think that will help. Bottom line, I think as long as the movement against him stays nonviolent, the movement against him wins. I think Republicans in elected office at every level will face unrelenting and increasing pressure to split from Trump on his almost unbelievably unpopular policies. Everything from tariffs to cutting Medicaid, to what he's doing to Social Security, to his treatment of Ukraine, to medical research, to Meals on Wheels, to Head Start, all of it. Republicans will be under unrelenting and increasing pressure to split from him on basically every policy with which he is associated. And yes, that includes immigration. And yes, that includes his abuse of trans people. I think relentless opposition and mockery of his failures will spread and intensify as those are further exposed and as nobody in any part of Republican politics finds any way to defend him. I think emergency defense measures will increasingly spring up all over the country whenever he tries to pick anyone off, immigrants or otherwise. I think 100 days in that Donald Trump is losing. And I think Americans defending democracy are winning. In these last few days where I'm going to be here every night, We're going to talk about some of what I think is around the corner for the second 100 days and beyond. Some of the new threats in what Trump is doing that the country hasn't really focused on yet, but I think they are on their way. We've got an expert here tonight for the first one of those discussions, an expert from the Brennan Center to talk about one of these issues that is keeping me up at night. We have not yet talked about it here on the show. You have not been seeing it anywhere in the news yet. I think it's coming. I think it's important. We're going to talk about that tonight, again, with an expert from the Brennan Center. We're also going to talk tonight about how a movement for democracy and a movement against authoritarian takeover, how a movement like that can scale up. It can not only persist, but grow and escalate sustainably to not just resist, but to actually win. We're going to get some great reporting on that in just a moment from another country that has just gone through an authoritarian takeover, and their opposition movement is fighting now to get their country back. They are stronger than they have ever been, and they have important lessons for us. There's so much to cover. There's so much to get to. Sit tight. We'll be right back. Viktor Orban is the Prime Minister of Hungary. He's the longest-serving leader in the EU. He's been Hungary's autocratic leader since 2010. He's been there more than 14 years, and in true strongman style, he shows no intention of leaving power anytime soon. Ex-dictator is not a good job title for anyone, right? Here in the U.S., the Trump movement has overtly acknowledged Orban's rise as a blueprint for their own plans to stop the United States from being a liberal democracy, and in many ways to stop the U.S. from being a democracy at all. The nation of Hungary is not on the road to authoritarianism like we are here in the U.S. Hungary has arrived. It is an authoritarian regime. But that doesn't mean the opposition has stopped fighting. Quite the contrary. Right now, they might be stronger than they've ever been. They're coming back. This is what Hungary's capital city of Budapest has looked like every Tuesday for nearly 2 months now. Thousands of people taking to the streets to protest what is on its face a ban on the gay pride parade, the LGBTQ pride parade in Budapest. But really, it's bigger than that. It's an assault on the freedom of assembly itself in that country. Thousands of people have been taking to the streets every week, every Tuesday. And this in a country that is far from a responsive liberal democracy. They have been turning out in huge numbers every week to make their voices heard. It's happening at a time when Orban's popularity is declining. His party is polling behind the opposition party again and again. Orban's government is trying to attack the freedom of assembly in order to cling to power, despite the public's dim view of Orban's reign. But for now, the people still have freedom of assembly, and they are trying to protect it by using it with an exclamation point. My beloved colleague Alex Wagner has just returned from a fascinating reporting trip to Budapest, where she talked with those protesters.
Why did you come to the protest?
Because they are trying to limit our rights, and they are trying to ban our existence here.
Do you think that people who are not here are paying attention to what's going on? Do you think this raises awareness?
Yeah, I think they do. They can't not pay attention because we are here in the streets, we are screaming, we are yelling to set us free. Because this is not freedom, this is not democracy what they are doing right now.
You know, we're in America and we have Trump, who's a big fan of Orban.
Yeah, they're besties.
Yeah. Well, and now there's a question about whether Americans need to be doing more of this kind of protest.
Definitely.
To raise awareness.
I still hope that we can change this. We are young, we are here, and we don't want this. We want change. We want democracy.
Do you think that this is raising awareness?
Yes, absolutely raising awareness. That's one of the most important things. Yes, that people see that something is happening.
Why do you think this was the thing, this was the tipping point?
Because it doesn't only affect pride, it also affects our rights of assembly, you know, so they can control anything basically now.
We're coming from America, where we're sort of beginning to grapple with some of these same issues.
Yeah.
things are now reaching a tipping point in the United States?
I think they are actually. Well, it wasn't a really good choice to to let Donald Trump win. So I actually hope people do the same, keep protesting and keep speaking out, just to make them uncomfortable and to make them let them see that they cannot do anything without consequences.
So is this your first time coming out to protest this?
No, I'm protesting since 15 years. So,
Oh, wow. So you've been opposed to...
since the Orban government is ruining our democracy, and this is what's happening in the US right now, so you should be worried about your status as well.
Wow. Since the Orban government is ruining our democracy, 15 years, this is what's happening in the US right now. You should be worried about your status as well. Wow. Joining us now is my colleague Alex Wagner, MSNBC's senior political analyst and the host of the podcast Trumpland with Alex Wagner. Alex, this freaking incredible footage. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for airing it. You know, the incredible accolades go to the people who are in the streets, as you mentioned, Rachel. I mean, these are the people who have lived under an autocracy for 15 years. I mean, the two younger people that I was speaking to, you know, have only really known Orban their entire lives, and yet their commitment to the cause, their resilience, their tenacity, their enthusiasm is extraordinary. I have to say, you know, you've done such an amazing job of covering these protests that have been happening around the country. But I do think for some people there's a sense that, you know, there's a sense of malaise, if not hopelessness, that people kind of communicate in their day-to-day. But you go to a place like Hungary and you see these people out in the streets, and you cannot come back here to the United States and not be optimistic, not just about our institutions and our democracy, but the people that live here and the opportunities that we have as Americans to change our destiny, to change our future. I mean, you know, as a journalist, as a citizen, it was, you know, a lot of it was tough. A lot of these interviews were tough, but overall, I came back fired up, ready to go, to paraphrase, you know, a phrase of yore. But really, Rachel, it was an extraordinary trip.
And Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you spoke to one of the leaders, not just of the protests, but one of the opposition political parties, a member of parliament named Martin Tomposh. We've pulled a clip of that. I want to play a little bit of it, and then I have a question for you about it on the other side.
Do you think the 2026 elections are going to be different? Could they be a different outcome than Orban winning?
They will be different, but not because of the result. I don't want to guess what's going to happen. I'm sure that it's going to be different because of the candidates, and it's going to be different because if Fidesz is losing like half year before, they're going to change it completely, so nobody will even have the slightest chance to win.
You think that they're going to actually interfere in the election?
Yes, and not only them, the Russians, the Chinese. I mean, Hungary is such a strong Trojan horse in the bloc that it's just too good an investment to let go.
How do you then, I mean, if you believe that, you know, if Orban stands a chance of losing, they will literally rig the election.
Yeah.
What's the point?
I have a 7-week son, 7-week-old, and if I'm not gonna do something, what can I tell him when he grows up and asks that, yeah, Dad, why, when we left Hungary, I'm like, why? Did you do something? And I can say, yeah, I've been an MP, I've been doing this for 10 years, and then we left at the last moment when it seemed like there is no change.
Wow. I want to ask you, Alex, essentially the same question that you asked Mr. Tomposh there. The protesters that you talk with, do they think there is a real possibility of ousting Orban in the next election? And if they don't, like he doesn't, he thinks that Orban will never allow that. What do they see as the tactical point of holding these protests?
They see this as the work of a democracy. I think you get different assessments based on who you talk to. Mr. Tomposh thinks that he's going to be a grandfather by the time Orban is out. But you talk to other people who think, look, Orban has done a terrible job, much like Trump, of steering the Hungarian economy. There's an opposition figure, Peter Magyar, who is rising, who is spending a lot of time in all parts of Hungary, who has a lot of support from a wide cross-section of Hungarian society. But ultimately, look, they think they understand the stakes. They look to America. They have lots of advice about what we should be doing. They'd like to see even more Americans in the streets. But they think fundamentally that when you have hope, whether that's hope within you or an actual alternative in the form of an opposition figure, that anything is possible, Rachel. And I spoke to one individual, Sandor Lederer, who runs an amazing anti-corruption organization called K-Monitor. And he said, you know, you can talk about corruption every single day, and you should, and we should document the sort of the sins of the powerful. But nothing changes, and you lose people at some point unless you give them an alternative. And right now in Hungary, it feels like there's an alternative. People have coalesced around issues like pride that are really, as you point out, issues of civil liberties, freedom of assembly. They have found an opposition figure that gives them hope. They have looked to places elsewhere in the world and realized that, you know, democracy is an idea. And it is their idea. They hold it close, and they're fighting for it. A lot of them are younger. I think they have, by nature, a little bit more optimism than older generations, but is by no means generational. I mean, what you see there is a powerful example of how we as Americans can think about our fortunes. And I just got to say, the tenacity of this society after 15 years of autocracy, it felt as energized as any place I have ever been in, and we would do well to hear from these people, look at their examples, and listen to their advice as we try and navigate our own version of you know, an autocratic, power-hungry ruler intent on enriching himself at all costs.
Yeah, it's try to see us through their eyes.
Yeah.
And they see what remains of our freedom of the press and our freedom of assembly and our ability to have opposition politics and all this stuff that has been completely winnowed down. They see that we've got levers to pull that they would kill for. It's just that we've got to see it through their eyes in order to see it and not take it for granted. It's really, really, really great reporting, and it's great to see you. Alex Wagner, MSNBC senior political analyst. Thank you, my friends. Fantastic work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can hear more of Alex's reporting from Hungary on her podcast, Trumpland with Alex Wagner. The next episode drops on Thursday. All right, more news ahead here tonight. Stay with us. So here's kind of a sleeper issue that hasn't gotten much attention. But one of the things I want to do as we close in on the start of the second 100 days of Trump's term in office is I want to put a little bit of focus on things that haven't yet emerged as major issues, but heads up, they're coming. So here's one. You might not have heard anything about it, but this month, President Trump signed what he called a National Security Presidential Memorandum, which declared that extended swaths of 3 contiguous states are all now technically a military base. It's 170 miles long, a long strip of federal land along the southern borders of California, Arizona, and New Mexico. And in this memo, Trump ordered the Pentagon, the Defense Department, to start taking control of this land. So now the U.S. military has taken control of 170 miles of land, starting in New Mexico, along New Mexico's southern border. And they've declared that that land is now part of Fort Huachuca, which is a U.S. Army base that's not even in New Mexico. It's in Arizona. Why would you take 170 miles of land in 3 different states and say all that land is now part of an Army base somewhere very far away? Well, the reason Trump is doing that is because he wants active duty U.S. military service members to start arresting people on U.S. soil. Last week, the military announced that U.S. soldiers are now authorized to arrest anyone who steps foot on that 170-mile-long strip of land. U.S. soldiers, active duty soldiers, are now newly authorized to search those people. They are authorized to implement crowd control. U.S. active duty troops searching and arresting people on U.S. soil and performing crowd control operations, again, on U.S. soil. And this land, yes, it is along the Mexican border, and migrants crossing the border are the stated targets of this new operation. So we may not think of this as something that matters for broader U.S. politics or indeed the health of our political system. But if you're looking for big red flags in terms of authoritarian takeover in a democratic rule of law country, when you've got U.S. troops searching and arresting people and doing crowd control on U.S. soil, you're kind of there. Under American law, the Posse Comitatus Act is supposed to prevent the U.S. government from using U.S. soldiers on U.S. soil. Theoretically, if somebody wanders onto a military base, they can be arrested as trespassers on military property. So the idea, I think here, the neat trick that Trump has pulled here is that he's just turned hundreds of miles of American soil into what is technically a military base. And so, hey, presto, that's one neat trick to give the U.S. military the power to search and arrest people on U.S. soil. And right now, they are only doing it at the edges, literally the physical edges of our country. But that is how you start. We've got expert advice on this and what this might mean for all of us here next. Stay with us.
My name is Derek Ray, and my commentary partner on this occasion is Stuart Robson. And a huge... They've been excellent. And so the battle commences. And here's the starting 11 for Rangers. Iker Casillas begins in goal. Gabriel plays with Carles Puyol in central defence. Andrea Pirlo starts alongside Dennis Bergkamp in the centre of midfield. And leading the attack today is Gerd Müller. And the starting 11 for the Spartans. Alisson begins in goal. Nemanja Vidic plays alongside Virgil van Dijk in central defence. Zinedine Zidane plays alongside Curtis Jones in central midfield. And in attack, Alessandro Del Piero starts with Luis Hernandez. And there it breaks down, but credit to the defence. Del Piero. And defensive play to be applauded.
طبعا مش بس تشري الصداع بيني وبين صديقي زوجي وانت حافظنا على العلاقة القوية اللي بيناتنا
انت بتحرم زوجي يعني زوين مزوجة لا زوين مطلق
وانا متزوج وحامل كاع
اش حامل
الماء وحامل المارات في الفينو
قال لي حامل الشعر الوطني
غير بغيت لك التوام ولكن انت شفتي
كاع شوف هذا الحق خليت
وهذا هو ربي شكون شحال من واحد شاف بنت ولقى دري شحال من واحد شاف دري ولقى بنت
تروح المرقى كيبغى
شحال من واحد في الدقالات ودازو لي وتبثحو
واحد صاحبي في الدقالات وما دازو لي الشي تاع السد تاعك ما تقمار
والله لا تقمار باقي غنجرب السدان ديريكت
السدان ديريكت ما جربناش والله يدي زوير وصافي
ما جربناش
كان زوير بيسجل
ولكن كنظن ما يدوزوش والله
واش تيدوزو لي ديما
انا ما نتيقش، انا نتيق هذاك يوتيوب اللي قالت لك حيدتي الدخله، واخا حيدتي راه غتوصلك مستحقات.
لا انت عاوز نحطك في الصوره شي تحيد الدخل ماشي بالنسبه لي انا ما نفعني بوالو. حيت تقدر تكون حيد الدخل ووصلك ميساج راه مشاك الدخل.
شي مكان بحال بحلول عند القناه.
هاد اللعيبه هادي ما عندهاش علاقه بحال الا حطيتي قناه وما كتخدمش بها. يعني انا بالنسبه لي كتجربه، انا واخا تكون عندي فيها مليار ما نحيدش الدخل، حيت عارف ما تجيش تبدل عندي والو. نتوما براسكم شحال مره وصلكم ميساج راه مشى الدخل وانت محيد الدخل؟ وصلك ولا ما وصلكش؟
انا ما وصلنيش.
وصلتو هي
لحظه
يعني انا هاد التجربه ما صارت ما عرفتش انها ما خدامهاش. خدام في الحاله ديالك انت دابا على الزمان مزيان الامور الحمد لله والشكر لله كنبغيو لك الخير. انا ما وصلتش للميساج فهمتي، بحال الا ما خدمتيش بها بقات واقفه فهمتي. لا زعما نحطو باش تكون واضح شي انا تقريبا دابا هادشي عام الاخر راه سمعتي شوفي راه تنخليهم واقفين تنخدم شهر لا وغادا مزيان.
قلت دابا كتنشر فيهم محتوى، انا ما كنشر كاع تنخليهم
كنحتاج فيهم محتوى حصري وتنعاود نخدم بهم مرات الشهر الثالث ونفس البلان موراها لا اله الا الله محمد رسول الله. في الاخر تيبقى كلشي ظهر.
والله لا نكتب لك شي حاجه نكتبها لك تبان لك كذاب.
راك تشوف الاخبار ولد وقف عليه تيقول له ما تكميش، تيقول له بارك لكم الكارو وسمع شنو دار. كنا كنهضروا انا وياه ما شنو دار هز باكيه من الزبل حطها حدا زهير وما عرف من عيط زهير
من امي
حط الباكيه من الزبل حطها حدا زهير وهو عيط على امه قال لها اجي تشوفها هو تيكمي ها هو الكارو حداه فهمتي. التفكير كي داير صافي. قال له ما تاكميش، قال له واش كدير عندك بريكه يلاه اش كدير عندك بريكه.
جمع عليه الادله كامله سكرهم قدامه في الطبله وعيط الحكومه الكبيره ماشي حتى الصغيره.
قال له ما تاكميش، قال له واش كدير عندك بريكه زير بقى عليه بريكه كنشعلو بها البوطه قال له كدا ما كاينش شي دار كتشعل البوطه بالبريكه ديال بيك. عندك بيك زوين
بيك كبيره
ايوا كاين شي دار عندها بيك كتشعل بها ما تكون عندك الطويله ولا كاع يشريو بيك